Hi, folks. Welcome to the Politico Chat. It's Monday, April 11th. I'm Alexander Trowbridge. President Obama is set to deliver a speech on reducing the nation's debt, just as raising the debt ceiling becomes DC's next big battle. And, on a lighter note, we watch as the famously aloof Commander-in-Chief gets a little more personal. For more on these stories, we're joined by Politico's Julie Mason, all the way from the White House. Julie, yesterday David Plouffe hit the Sunday show circuit and he announced a upcoming speech on fiscal policies for the president. What's the president looking to say here?
Alex, Obama wants to get out in front on the deficit-cutting issue. So Plouffe went on all the Sunday shows and was talking up this Wednesday speech the president's going to give.
Later this week, the president's going to speak about his approach to long-term deficit reduction. The president will be laying out his approach to long-term deficit reduction later this week. And I think that we have to focus on that.
The president's going to talk about reductions in spending on Medicare and Medicaid and taxing the rich, and that's his package. Polls show that people do care about the deficit, and they're worried about how it's going to affect them. Like, are their taxes going up? Is it going to cost them more, this incredible $1.3 trillion deficit? So Obama doesn't want to leave it to the Republicans. He wants to get out in front and own the issue before they do. So that's what we're going to see on Wednesday.
And the front page New York Times article laid out how this is, more comprehensive than the Republicans' approach, or hopes to be at least. How is the president going to differentiate his approach from the Republicans?
Well, the big thing is on the taxes. You know, they cut taxes right before Christmas in December when they had that big tax cutting deal, and he made some major concessions there in extending the tax cuts for the rich that we got under the Bush administration. He wants to get rid of that, and that's a real a real big difference between he and the Republicans. He just doesn't want to do that anymore. It's not his policy. He wants to get away from that.
Now, we all know why President Obama supported extending the tax cuts last year, but the emerging narrative is never that nuanced, and people might even be able to say he flipped on that. Same way they're now playing clips of him once actually opposing raising the debt ceiling.
Right, but that's a political game, and that's a political equation, and what Obama's trying to do is reposition himself back toward the center. And I think that's who he's trying to appeal to: independents, centrists, moderates, people who want to see more compromise in Washington and aren't really so consumed with the politics of the situation. So that's what we're seeing him doing. And that's sort of the way he's going and the way that they're going to pitch it and frame it, not as a political debate, but as an important fiscal debate.
And we have a piece out today by Jonathan Allen looking at the debt ceiling and how it could be an even bigger fight than the one we just saw with the government shutdown. What are the sides looking like on that?
Oh, God, the debt ceiling, that's going to be huge. That's the next big sexy debate, and it's got a built-in deadline, and it's going to be really fun. Congress is leaving I believe it's at the end of this week. They're going to be out for the last 2 weeks in April. The debt ceiling deadline comes in around mid-May. That gives them about 2 weeks to work this out. The problem is that the government has a $14.3 trillion debt ceiling, and we're about to exceed it, meaning can't pay the bills, can't pay the military or meet the obligations. So Congress has to vote to raise the debt ceiling. Republicans don't want to do it. But you're already hearing them put a few conditions on it and sound like they may be willing, saying, well, if we raise the debt ceiling, there's going to have to be all kinds of new austerity. So they're leaving some room for negotiation. But again, this is going to be the next big fight in Congress with a built-in deadline that's going to be all panicky and crazy, and that's going to hit around mid-May.
Yeah, Jonathan had a nice line today. Nothing says fiscal failure quite like making room for more debt.
Exactly. But it's something that everyone can identify with, right? Because part of the problem in writing these stories as a journalist is making it so that ordinary people can care and understand about it, because it all seems so sort of theoretical and at a distance, especially when you're worrying about paying your own bills and meeting your own obligations. But when you can put it in the terms of, you won't be able to pay your bills, you won't if you don't get your credit limit raised, but it's the federal government, it all becomes a little more understandable, a little easier to explain.
Now, on the lighter side of things, I was reading the president's diary, and no, I'm just kidding. Well, you pointed out today that the president is getting much more personal, talking about bullying, talking about how he wants to walk out in Central Park and see real people again. What does this mean?
Well, it's getting to be campaign time. And the president, as you know, critics always slam him for being so remote and so aloof and really impersonal. And it's true. I mean, I see him all the time. We see him all the time at the White House. But you don't really get a sense of his personality so much. He's very businesslike. But now it's time to campaign, so we're starting to see these flashes of disclosure, of sharing from him. He talked at the bullying conference about, how he was bullied as a child. In almost every speech now, he's talking about his gray hair. He's aging. He's going to turn 50 in August, and that's a big milestone for him. In an interview with Hearst magazines last week, he talked about how much he misses squeezing fruit in the supermarket and getting his car washed. And this is all, it's true. I mean, what he's saying is true, and I believe that he does feel this way, but there's also a political calculation behind it. They're trying to make him more relatable. So he's talking about himself more, which he doesn't like to do. He's not comfortable doing it. He doesn't like to share, but he's sharing because he has to.
Julie, thank you for calling in all the way from the White House. I know you gotta get back to work. Thank you for coming on.
Sure, Alex, anytime. Bye.